a beautiful carol there, Hark the Herald Angels Sing, music from the spirituals there. It brings the time to exactly 7:45 from the studios of Love 99.5 FM. Well, my guest is already with me in the studios of Love, and of course, we're excited to have her join us this morning. I'm talking about Joyce Bawa Mukhtar. She's a lawyer, she's a former deputy minister. She is a astonishing politician, and she loves Ghana to bits. And she was enjoying the carols as well, wasn't she? Good morning.
Very much so. It actually reminded me of my young kids. That's all they do. They just started school, so
the triplets.
Every day we have a new one loading. So yeah, that's very interesting.
How are they doing?
They're doing great. They're doing fine.
Thank God. And of course, thanks to you for making time to be with us this morning.
Oh, fantastic opportunity. I haven't been here in like God knows how long.
Yes, you have not, huh?
And so yesterday was Felix and I as usual. And then we recalled conversations from months back. I think it was in 2015 or 16 that we arrived here and got into that whole battle with all sorts of people, you know. And funny enough, I mean, I was hardly known then. And most people didn't even know that I was with Felix and Omani and a few others. So it's great to be back. It's great
good to have you. Good
Likewise,
to have you.
A very good morning to all of you. And
and you know, like I said before, she's an aide to the former President John Dramani Mahama. She's right here with us in the studios of Love 99.5. We're going to be having a conversation. What we require of you or expect of you is to ask her questions, and she would address your questions for you. All right. Maybe you would want her to, you know, carry a message to the former president on your behalf. And so she would gladly carry that message, convey that message to the former president on your behalf. You can do so by sending us your thoughts and your messages to our WhatsApp number 055-1111-995. Again, I take it for you. It's 055-1111-995. We're live as I speak on Facebook on Love in the Morning. You can join us there as well. Ask questions, let her address it for you. So what brings you to Kumasi, our beautiful region and city?
Oh, you know, we've been going around and having these engagements with our communications groups in particular. This week, graciously, I was one of the people invited by the party to join a workshop on building the Ghana we want together. You know, it is a theme under which John Mahama has actually recently been touring the country. So obviously, we need to come and have conversations with everybody else. Sometimes you just need to update everybody, encourage and motivate them. And I think that this week, quite a number of us have been in and out of here, and will continue right up to the day when we're voting and electing a new leader. So yes, for my part, it was a fantastic opportunity. We had quite a number from across the region in the room, and we had very interesting conversations, very interesting questions. And you know, sometimes we bring to the fore all the very positive things that are happening in and around the National Democratic Congress. And yes, maybe people see us maybe even as senior members of the party, so they expect to hear from us, interact with us. I mean, I couldn't even believe it. Everybody wanted to take a photograph. I thought, I mean, since when have I become so interested in, you know, people that everybody wants to have an opportunity to take a picture with you one way or the other. I think that genuinely our executive in the region are doing a fantastic job. You know how it used to be around here. I told the boss today that, look, I think that if you've succeeded in working for the National Democratic Congress in this region, it means that you've achieved everything that a human being needs to survive. And I think that even impressions in and around here are changing. Yeah. You know, I sensed it right from the airport, people that I met around the hotel, around the shops where I stopped to buy a few things, even in the questions that people keep asking. So I believe strongly, very strongly, that one of these very fine days, who knows, it will no longer be the stronghold of some people. Maybe it would soon, very soon.
So we'll talk about what gives you that conviction, that confidence in a bit. But you say things are changing in the region when you got to town and all that. What have you noticed?
Oh, I've noticed quite a lot. I've noticed a lot of road works going on all over the town and all over the place. Most of them have been like this probably for the last 2 years. I'm not even sure when we'll be expecting them to be completed. I've also noticed how some of the few roads that were great around Asawasi and all of that are suddenly full of manholes. I won't even call them potholes. I've observed also that the hardship, the tightness in the economy is biting even here. I mean, to arrive in Kumasi Saturday and Sunday, and the streets are not totally overwhelmed with crowds and all of that, tells you a certain story, that all of us are feeling the very high food inflation, the difficult borrowing environment, the very difficult economic environment. This is actually one of the biggest economies we have in the country.
We'll be getting to, nitty-gritties of stuff in a bit, but how is the former president doing? I mean, I think on the 29th, he celebrated his 65th birthday. Yes. How did it go? How did he celebrate the day? I saw a few pictures on social media, giving some donations, saying that his sons are, single and
I realized that of all the great things on that day, that quip is about all the young women are interested. Even I'm getting text messages and phone calls. Yes.
Okay, what are people saying?
Oh, well, Auntie Joyce, I'm interested. Oh, so which of them is single? So, can I have a number? Or just all I want is a picture with one of them. I said, oh, don't worry, the time will come. But yes, John Mahama at 65, and I must confess that 65 actually looks nothing on him. He looks like not a day shy of even 55, and I think that he's been very, very lucky. God has been very kind to him. My very interesting refrain on that morning was, how do you feel at 65? And then he looked at me and smiled. He said, I feel nothing like 65. And he looks good for his age. He takes his health very seriously. He exercises a lot. He stopped eating a lot of things, and he will avoid sugar like a plague. I mean, look at the beautiful birthday cake we had to commemorate the day, and he literally just cut the cake to commemorate the day and donated the whole cake to the hospital and the inmates there. And of course, you do know that this is not the first time. On each of his birthdays in the last God knows how long, there's always something he does by way of a donation, interaction with young children. So normally the selection process takes us a while. And of course, under the circumstances and being in a position, know that it's not every institution that you'll approach to want to visit and they will be happy or delighted to receive you. So that also takes some negotiations and very interesting conversations. But we also know that the Shai Osudoku District Hospital is a hospital that is very close to the heart of John Mahama and his family in particular, because he was very instructive in the processes leading up to the construction and eventual commissioning of that project for use. And I couldn't believe it, the number of patients he was there. In fact, including my own neighbors' staff who had come there with a young baby and was utterly surprised to see that we were arriving there that morning for these donations. They were very gracious. They received them very well. We had a lovely prayer. And then the proceedings took just about 10-20 minutes. And to be honest, the donations were amazing. I mean, imagine, to share diapers to young mothers. I know how much it costs to buy
I know diapers. You also shared some not long ago.
All the time. Because, even now that I have these younger children, I mean, my son is almost 17 in a few days, so he's a big man now. But with the younger ones, I've realized just how much more expensive everything is. And having multiples makes it even more expensive. So you have to get like everything times 3. So imagine all of these other mothers who are probably not in the bracket in which we find ourselves, unfortunately. So this is a donation like no other. And I watched a young mother who walked up to me and she had all these tears on her eyes. And when I even offered her a little token, she cried even harder, and I understood her. She had 2 packets of the diapers. She had a school bag for her child. And then she said to me, oh, there's no way she could ever afford to buy a bag like that. And I said, don't worry. This is a bag that child will have till they're about 16, 17. So to God be the glory.
Great things he has done, huh?
Amen.
So, after the, primaries of the NDC, where John Dramani Mahama winning overwhelmingly, almost 90% victory for him, he tasked leaders of the party, from the chairman and co, to bring everybody on board, to bring unity. How would you describe the NDC as we speak? What shape is the NDC in? Very united, or still struggling to become united? Because again, prior to that, elections, a lot of things were said. I mean, I remember vividly some of the things Kojobo himself said and all that. How's the NDC as we speak?
Well, I think we are in very good health. We are a government in waiting. I think each and every member of the party, from the top to the bottom, especially in the many volunteers and activists that we have across the length and breadth of the country, everybody is tasking each and every one to be a custodian of the impending victory. And I believe that all of us have taken that very, very seriously. You can see from the perspectives even shared by the national chairman, General Sedun Ketia, the general secretary, the Honorable Fifi Kwete, and of course, everybody else. It is very, very obvious that everybody is poised to work it very, very hard. Remember that in the course of the campaign for the flag bearership contest, John Mahama even announced, for example, that branch executives who got votes higher than the last election will receive commendation and some rewards. It was also a way to encourage everybody to get up and start doing. I think that is exactly what we are doing now. And it's also part of the reason why we are here this week. We've gone to a number, Sami Jemfi is a communications director, fantastic gentleman, done a great job. And he's back here, working here this week. And you'll see many of us coming in and out. And it's happening across the country. While Ashanti region was taking place, there was one going on in the northern region. The teachers were meeting at the party headquarters. There's a whole flurry of activity. And yesterday we had my colleague Felix Okosu-Kwachi, always a fantastic orator. He did a great presentation, fantastic job. I think that everybody knows what's up, as they say, and we are all poised for
it. This is his home. I remember when he was special aid to Kojo Bonsu at the KMA at the time.
Yes, exactly.
And he's grown beautifully into the communication director position.
Absolutely. That's a great job.
But there's something on the minds of some Ghanaians that I've engaged with. Yeah. So let me ask that question on their behalf. When it comes to politics, some people are lucky they just get into the position of an assemblyman and they are done. Others become members of parliament and they are done. But when it comes to John Dramani Mahama, he's done it all. He's been an assemblyman, a member of parliament, a minister of state, a vice president, a president. But come next year for the elections, 2024, his picture is going to be on the ballot as well. What else does he want to do for this country? Why is he still, looking for that office?
Well, I find this a very, very, every time I get this question, I get a little bit slightly emotional. It's also a very humbling realization. And I've tried very hard to put it in a very spiritual context, that God up there chooses whom to bless. And sometimes God just decides that this is my son in whom I'm well pleased. I think there's a certain element of destiny also attached to this individual, John Dramani Mahama. I'm sure if you read his book, My First Coup d'etat, you will see that he recounts very vividly an experience when he was a very young child with his own father before him. Note that John Mahama comes from a father who was actually very instructive in the days of Nkrumah. And so a lot of the politics of the North would not be told without his late father, E.A. Mahama. So I think that on every point that we make, there is also an element of some leaders who are born or who are destined to lead in a certain way or in a particular way. And I think also that at every given point in our history, a certain precedent will be set. Most likely it's never been set before, maybe it's never been done before, but there must be a very good reason why that is happening. Look, currently we need a certain unifying force, a certain tolerance that we probably require. Above all, you need a certain level-headedness. I think when you look around across the whole raft of leaders that we have, John Mahama stands tall as a man who embodies all of these qualities. And I have no doubt in my mind that the NDC must have a very good reason, because even when they open nominations, many people come on board. But you realize that the rank and file of the party is solidly behind him. And when you consider the circumstances of the last 8 years, you look at the sort of criticism that he received even prior to his exit from office, a lot of people have come to realization that genuinely this was a man who actually was a very nationalistic man, very patriotic individual. And I believe that the fact that JM loves Ghana is a fact that is on his sleeves and everybody sees it. Look, all our leaders have served in one way or the other. Tell me, which of our leaders just woke up in the morning and happened to be president or vice president? Each one has a certain historical antecedent, and it's very obvious for all of us to see. Remember former President Kufuor, at some point even served under Generation Rawlings. He must have cut his teeth in a certain way that even though everybody knew that he was from the UP stock, he qualified at the time even to serve as a deputy minister. He may not have been there for long, but listen to what it did. It set him up for the rest of the campaigns that he was to conduct. And I still remember talking to one of our older fathers, for example, who told me the story about how this whole J.A. Kufuor thing happened and how they all thought that he wasn't such a great speaker, so maybe he was a better option for the NDC at the time. And then the first time they visited a certain chief's palace, I won't mention who, and they heard him speak, the sort of wisdom that he spoke, everybody who sat there was totally shocked and thought, oh, wow, maybe the man had a certain gift that all of us probably had not even foreseen. So sometimes leaders are born, and it takes a very little opportunity for a leader to literally shine through. I believe that as we sit today, judging by the enormity of the future that we have ahead of us, if there's any individual who has actually charted the path of history in ways that I personally think can probably help mend the seeming difficulties and challenges that we face, I think that man is Mr. Mahama.
And indeed, over the weekend, he was calling for prayers to be said for leaders of this country, even bad leaders, and that prayers are needed. And if you look at this beloved country of ours, Ghana, we wish this country nothing but the very best. Well, in case you just turned on your radio, you just joined us on Facebook on Love in the Morning. Our guest this morning is Joyce Bawa Mokhtari, special aide to the former President John Dramani Mahama. And she's here, and she says she's engaged with NDC communicators in the region. She's loving her stay in the region already. If you have any question for her, why don't you send it to our WhatsApp number, 055-1111-995. That's our WhatsApp number. Again, 055-1111-995. If there's any question at all you will want her to respond to, she's more than willing to answer that question for you. Again, she can carry messages, not a message, messages. So if you want any message to be carried to the former president on your behalf, what is that message you want her to take to the former president? Again, you can drop it on our Facebook page on Love in the Morning or on our WhatsApp number 055-1111-995, and she'll carry that message on your behalf to the former president. So, rightly so, you yourself, leaders of the NDC have been, touring the country. The former president himself has also been touring the country. Last week or so, I think he was in the Volta region. What has he been able to pick, on the road as he engages with the electorates? What is he picking? What is he gathering from the electorates?
Over the last few years, 8 years almost, since Mr. Mahama has been out of office, I describe him as probably one of the most sought after, or the most listened to individuals that we have. And on all these trips with him, I realized that many young people from across our political divides really have enjoyed these engagements with him. There's a question I ask on Twitter every now and then. If you had a minute with Mr. Mahama, what exactly would you want to ask him? What would you want to see him do for the good people of Ghana? How would you want him to further some of the policies that he has actually put out there? And what are your concerns even, whether a young person, an older person, an individual, as we go along the country? And yes, when we started the Building the Ghana We Want Together tour, we started in the former Ahafo regions in particular. The engagements have been nothing short of literally revealing. And persons from all walks of life. Not all the persons in those engagements, because in our engagements with the TUC Ghana, for example, across the country, they're not all necessarily members of our party. And then, of course, with the young people that we meet, the nurses, the doctors, the lawyers, and all the various professional groups we meet are not all necessarily members of the National Democratic Congress. But you will find the conversations are literally the same. How would you help mend the economy? What will you do for investors? What will you do for businesses? How will you support many of these professional bodies that we actually literally lost in the run-up to the 2016 campaign because of propaganda and many falsehoods that were, literally put out there? I asked a question once. So all the nurses today that are still screaming about Alawa, it's almost as if the 8 years simply did not happen. It didn't go anywhere because the conversations are the same. Don't forget that we had a time when we had people even bringing nurses out onto the streets, literally, to destroy President Mahama's posters and whatever. Look, we are all probably about the same level now. And as I always say, personally, I don't have a home anywhere. And you can tell them, Mr. Mahama, even since he left office, that guy, if you take him out of Accra, even for like a few days, even to England or wherever, he can't wait to be back. His family actually struggled to get him to take a few days off just to spend time with them. He loves to be on his farm in Bunsunu and in Bole and Damango. He enjoys going to visit his, people who work for him on the farms and all of that. Look, he is happiest when he's going around and minding his business in and around Agric and the farming thing that he does. But listen here. This is a man who, over the years, there's actually about nothing that has not been thrown at him. And yet Ghana is still his home. So who better to deliver for us the sort of Ghana that we all envisaged or imagined? And I am very sure that all of us will chip in one way or the other, irrespective, to make sure that something good comes out of this whole conversation and campaign. It is all that has been going on. And funny that you asked this question. So a few days ago, I was very, very amused, and this is just on the lighter side, when our current flag bearer of the NPP, certain vice president, was at the program. People were expecting the usual sorts of things that he says, etc. They were surprised that he delivered a statement almost on the lines of what Mr. Mahama said, even though he tried very hard to avoid using the exact same words. And I thought, that's awesome. Mr. Mahama leads by example. All of us who work for him, if each of us could at least take just a little bit of his level of tolerance and acceptability, I'm sure that all of us will be better human beings. And I think it is something that we ought to export effectively and impactfully.
You know, in the last, prior to the last elections, I'm talking about 2020, for example, I mean, he did a similar tour, of the country. Call it, I think they're listening to or something.
Yes.
And gathered enough information, concerns, and challenges from the electorate as a Ghanaian, and factored it into the manifesto,
which was the People's Manifesto at the time.
Called it the Rescue Ghana Mission at the time.
Yeah.
In this tour that he's going on and backing on, is it still gathering information that's going to influence the manifesto, get into the 2024 elections in any way?
Oh, yes. I mean, those ones never change. I mean, every day people's issues are different. If you watch what is going on now, unemployment is now at almost 14%. That's huge. The youth bulge that we have in Ghana is our biggest skill set. If they are literally unengaged, you do know that actually poses also a huge security threat in terms of our future. So there are all these challenges that need to be addressed. And of course, every day you tour a school. For example, we're in the Asunafo South, for example. And what was it that people were talking about? The nursing institute there actually had a problem with a fire outbreak where one of the homes that hosts these kids was totally burnt down. 8 years later, nothing has been done. So these are conversations that have happened. This is almost a very new conversation. Then you have also the whole gamut of issues to do with roads, to do with projects that were left uncompleted, and to do with issues. I mean, look at even here, for example, the hospital that was under construction has been left as it is. Absolutely. Aferi. There's a whole list of them, you know what I mean. So there's all these conversations that come up. And I listened to Nana Otumfuo a few days ago telling his own chiefs to ask the government operatives where the roads they've been constructing are. You know, when you unpeel a road and leave it unattended to with all the boulders and what have you, you and I know that they cause enormous obstruction to drivers, to pedestrians, and everybody who uses the road. We actually, as custodians of the law, owe a duty of care to road users to be sure that the roads that are there are at least more trouble. And you see, the thing about road construction is that if you do not invest regularly, rains will come. Vehicles will drop in and out. The road will eventually wear off, and you will definitely have challenges. So this is a matter of continuity that every day there must be. Look, when you go to all these developed countries that we all enjoy going and touting as fantastic examples, what do you see? Day in, day out, road construction is literally almost
maintenance
ongoing.
Is going on.
It is
even at night.
It is the largest actually employer of many of the people who probably literally would otherwise not find jobs anyway. You understand? And that is the only place where you get paid on the table. The taxman just takes what is his and everything else is handed over to you. So these are things that we need to emulate. And like I say every day, look, we certainly do not eat roads now, do we? That has not changed. But we hear conversations about being the largest road government that has constructed the most roads in the country and all of that. Look, I think we would ask for the next joke. Because I'm right here in the capital city. It's not as if I'm on the outskirts, etc. We drove actually from Bono all the way to Kumasi that day. So we had been in the region for nearly 7 days. So I've seen these roads. And if there's anything that I've gained in this space, it is that I literally know the country very well now. And there's something that I say all the time, and maybe I should repeat it just for good measure, that before an individual is appointed even as a minister or any government operative, you ought to understand this country very well. Know it for yourself, see it for yourself. And then when people have these conversations, you can be a good contributor.
Yeah, then you can appreciate the situation
better.
But again, I shudder to say this, that you gathered all that information, all that intelligence prior to the 2020 elections, put it in the manifesto, but it didn't help the party win the elections.
Can I tell you one thing that we don't get celebrated enough for?
Tell me.
When in the history of this world have you heard a political party go out of office with a new administration that won by almost about 900,000 votes, and we come back in 4 years, literally to win similar seats in parliament? Have you ever heard that? I observe that is one distinct aspect of our recent history that we, even in the NDC, have not held very close to our chest. It is something we shouldn't lose sight of. Nothing beats that one. It tells you two things. That by the first 4 years of this administration, people had realized that most of those lies were certainly not going to materialize. People were almost looking into their pockets and knowing that nothing was going to change, because certainly inflation was higher. Cost of fuel, which in 2016 was about 16 cedis, had gone literally higher. Look at the cost of the dollar to the cedi. Today is about 12 cedis and counting. At the time we left office, how much was the dollar to the cedi? I had a mortgage at the time, so I knew how much the dollar to the cedi was. It wasn't even 4 cedis, it was about 3 point something.
Yeah, 4 cedis.
Absolutely. When we left office, for example, remember that we had every conversation leading to the fact that the oil companies that were coming on stream, the oil wells that were being developed, the 10-1 in particular, that in the next 3 months of 2017, this economy was going to grow by 8%. Today we are celebrating an economy growing by 3%. So certainly our lives are definitely worse off. And you see, even on the peer review mechanisms, on all the human capital indications that we have, our poor have gotten poorer. Ghana now has the highest food inflation. Think about it. It means that nothing has changed.
So when John Dramani Mahama was president, he was called several names. I mean, like you said, earlier, one of the names that he was called by was an incompetent president. Because at the time, people felt that, well, Dumsor was rife at the time, the economy was not as good as they expected it and all. Listening to you this morning, describe, the MPP. In terms of the cedi, in terms of fuel, in terms of inflation and all that. How will you describe them? If they described, John Mahama as, incompetent at the time, how would you describe them? Looking at the administration, almost 8 years.
Short of sounding like Dalton Thomas. Listen here. I mean, if you look at all the critical things on which they contested and all the contestations that they made so effectively, and to the utter excitement of the many people who were following them in and around. Speak to them. Most people largely are very disappointed in their performance. Secondly, if you look at then, Dumsor, for example, I asked myself, it wasn't as if John Mahama was literally standing at the switch and turning it on and off. If you remember, under former President Kufuor, even under a certain period of Jerry John Rawlings, we had challenges with Dumsor, for example. But you see, there was also issues to do with climate change, where rain patterns had changed. Of course, social media was probably not on the level that it is now when former President Kufuor was in office. But I remember when he went out there and the pastors had gone even to the Akosombo Dam, for example, to pray for more rainfall. At the time, remember, we had callers on all the TV stations where the water levels were clearly indicated as a way of advising all of us to be modest in our usage of electricity, for example, because there were challenges with the water levels. He then took an initiative to even go and construct the Bui Dam. We all know that up to date, that dam has not worked. Apart from that, we also do know that many of the attempts at the time didn't work. Look, we were trying to move from a dependence on hydro to these independent thermal power producers. It was never going to be easy. We argue about take or pay agreements. Think about it. If you have no money, if you've never tried something before, it's literally in an experimental stage. Who is going to absorb that risk? I studied shipping. I know how much insurance costs when you ship anything. The highest thing that ship owners actually have to pay is the insurance. If you have delays, if you have any little incident at sea, if anything goes wrong at sea, your insurance goes up instantly, even long before the voyage is over. So this is the same situation that we had at the time. What were we going to offer? But we had to take a risk. Today, as we have this conversation, you've heard about the details about Ameri. They campaigned effectively. You heard about the details about car power. I'm told that even in recent times, Ameri is being moved here to augment exactly your power distribution.
Yes, to make it stable.
Thank you. Yeah. Absolutely. Because you see, businesses are also complaining about the cost of electricity. The reason why most of our manufacturing companies are not staying open. And the AGI spoke about this very, very effectively when Mr. Mahama and the NDC team met them. The biggest cost to most of our manufacturing companies is the cost of power and electricity. Imagine for a second that we didn't have these independent power producers. And then we're told about excess of power and too much power and all of these things. Look, I think that Ghanaians are suddenly tired of the propaganda. People want a certain modicum of sincerity. And I think that it is time for us to have leaders who speak the truth and call on Ghanaians even to participate. There's something that is going on now that I've observed, that maybe government has literally been so disappointing that people no longer expect much from government. Take, for example, the spillage from the VRA, for example. Look at most of the MPs who have been most affected by it, the communities that have been most affected by it. What they are doing is actually what? Reaching out to the generality of the good people of Ghana to support in whatever little way, so that at least they can rebuild the places that have been lost, the businesses that have been lost. Especially for most people, it is the accommodations that have actually been lost. But ask yourself, even here in the Ashanti region, to hear the Venerable Otumfuo himself asking for support of up to $10 million for the rehabilitation of the Komfo-Anokye Teaching Hospital. That was within itself telling. To be honest, initially I thought that when he started that conversation, that immediately government would run and say, oh, don't worry, now we found this amount of money, we're going to try and get people to come and start working on this facility immediately. But so far, nothing has been said. I've heard about the MPs who have donated graciously to the fund, and of course, the Honorable Mutaka of Asawasi is actually one of the biggest single donors so far. So why not? But this is a fantastic initiative. I mean, look at our own Kolebu Teaching Hospital, for example. You remember when they used it as an example about the Gadgetsburg economy and how they were going to move us from, taxation to manufacturing to and all of that. Today, I'm finding out that even the 2024 budget literally is going to be taxing what Akweteshi. You understand? Just because suddenly we are actually putting into beautiful bottles and exporting it for some modicum of identification and advertisement. This is the conversation we are having now. Very soon you'll be in your bedroom and you have to pay taxes to Mr. Ken Oforiatta because you've managed to go into a room and sleep. That is where we are now.
Well, you sound very confident listening to you. I mean, you've said, using phrases like, and when you form the next government, and Ghanaians are tired, they're struggling, they want to do so and so and all. Where is this confidence coming from? I mean, again, we know that Fitch, the EIU, and others have, predicted victory for the NDC when it comes to the 2024 elections. With all this, isn't the NDC somewhat going to be complacent? How is John Mahama taking all this? The vibe he's getting, I mean, Fitch, EIU, and all. How is he taking all this?
There have been times when these same bodies have made predictions that didn't come to pass, if you know what I mean. So most often than not, we take these ones maybe in parts because it actually gives you a certain modicum of confidence that maybe your message is being heard, that maybe you're doing something right. But on the whole, there is no table that we will not touch right up to the day when the votes are counted and John Mahama and the NDC declared victory. For two reasons. Because I believe that he will offer us better leadership. I believe he will offer us a more sincere leadership. I also believe that he will offer us a more inclusive leadership. And I think that is what we need now. Above all that, the level of tolerance of Mr. Mahama, I am yet to see in any leader that we have on the other side. Look, you mentioned something about that word incompetent, for example. And don't forget, even their spouses, the current second lady, for example, was using that term and describing her husband as an economic whiz kid and all of that. I don't know what she knew then about any economic processes or management of same. But yes, she went out there. I remember it was even the first time. It was actually here in the Ashanti region. My Ashanti is very limited in Todebia. Omukakura, Sheda, and Tiase. I mean, I'm trying very hard now.
No, you're correct.
But I remember, so it actually sent a certain impression out there. Think about it. This was a lady that nobody knew, relatively very humble-looking woman. I mean, the level of sophistication now didn't exist at the time. So it was only natural that people would buy into it. Oh, if this woman is saying that her husband, who is the deputy governor of the central bank currently and soon to become our second gentleman, is an economic whiz kid, maybe that might be true. She's almost just like us. Maybe there's something he'll do. Of course, that man was himself on every platform, touting to know everything from A to Z. Now we know that all of that was just highfalutin, that he actually knew next to nothing about how to manage the economy. Look, there are these things that I think as politicians we should not do. Now when you see all the receipts that come up, and then thanks to social media, like I say every day, in the days when the pastors went to pray around the Akosombo Dam, for example, social media wasn't what it is. Exactly. Now we have about 5.2 million men who are on social media and 4.8 women. So you know that about almost 5% of people ordinarily are social media users. So when something small happens, it travels much faster and in real time than it ever used to happen 10 or so years ago. Imagine today a president calling for such a prayer meeting. You understand? I mean, look at how the sort of ridicule that greeted even the construction of that now very corrupt National Cathedral, as we all know it, that we even hide behind the pandemic to steal from our citizens, to rob our citizens and say nothing about it. We hide behind the building or construction of a National Cathedral. Look, if any of us wanted to construct a National Cathedral, we'll probably want to do it what? Pro bono. Want to do it for free. If I was an architect, for example, why? I hear the sorts of testimonies that are given at funerals of lawyers in particular. And a few days ago, we were at Lawyer Kwacha's funeral, and the Victory Bible Church pastor spoke about the fact that every time the church had legal issues, he handled them for free. Because that was his forte. He didn't charge the church for it. So what did the church do? At his funeral, the church graciously handed both contributions that were made, both in respect to the church and for the family. Both contributions were handed to the church in honor of the support and work that he had done for the church. So when you have 58 million great dollars, imagine that $1 each were given to each poor person in the Ashanti region, for example. Can you imagine what that will look like? The improvement that will make in their lives. So you see, it is also about priorities. So when you ask me about that word incompetent, I ask myself, should we describe them as reckless? Should we describe them as useless? Should we describe them as hopeless? Should we describe them as dishonest, as men and women without integrity, as men and women who do not love Ghana, as men and women who do not even respect our basic freedoms? And the list is endless.
But let's talk about the running mate position. Any hint for us? Who's likely to talk about that position?
I'm sure you know that I'm a fantastic feminist. Any day, any time.
Okay, so
Mr. Mahama has not said anything to me about his choice of running mates. I honestly haven't even broached the subject. Neither have I had a conversation about it. But I love everything that is female. And I come back to the point that females offer. Apologies to Madame Siadapa. A fantastic option to the male-dominant environment that we
do you want Nana General to maintain? There are some people who are calling for a change. I know you've heard that. What's your take on that?
Look, let's be honest. This is my very personal perspective on the matter. Why not Nana Jane? Or any other woman for that matter? This is a woman who has an unparalleled record, who has become an example of what we call women or female excellence, who's led a fantastic life in academia, competent, capable, a very safe pair of hands. Like I said, look, enough of the jingoism, enough of the bravado, enough of the noise.
Would you want it to be maintained?
And the now empty ideas.
Would you want it to be maintained?
Why ever not? Why ever not?
You mentioned that you're, a staunch feminist.
Proper.
Yourself, you are an astute lawyer, great politician.
All that.
What about you? I mean, if the name, your name should pop up and they say, Charlie, Joyce Bawa Muktari, listen, I'm considering you. Yeah, I know that you're family to JM. You're also from the north. People are playing some
regional balance in your mind.
You know what I'm saying. So, but Charlie, a feminist, and Charlie, it falls on your lap. What will be your response?
Oh, you see, currently in the present dispensation, once it is Mr. Mahama, even if it falls on my lap, I'll say, oh God, that's for this one. Let this car pass me by.
Oh, you say that?
Oh, yes, for now.
Why?
Oh, I'm not ready yet, Charlie. I'm just starting to learn the ropes. So you let me stay here and learn a little bit more. Like I said, you see, in this life, in everything, let's be humble about our capabilities. Like I said, we've seen a very great example now, so that we don't want to get receipts very soon. So that when you now bring the receipts, I'll be running for cover. I beg you. You let me sit in my corner and serve very patiently.
Okay. Not long ago, we had, John Dramani Mahama mentioning a 24-hour economy.
Yeah.
And interestingly, he made similar comments last elections. It didn't garner as many, talkability as it has this time around. The TUC is for it. I heard the TUC say, Charlie, young people, get ready for jobs. The vice president himself, the leader for the NPP in the 2024 election says there's nothing new in there. I mean, we're already operating a 24-hour economy. I heard Alan Kojo Shamanting over the weekend himself say that you cannot run a 24-hour economy in an ailing economy. How does, John Dramani Mahama hope, to roll this out? Having at the back of your mind that, Charlie, we need to put some structures in place to be able to make it very, feasible and work efficiently. How does he intend to roll it out?
Let me start by stating categorically that there must be a very good reason why this message resonates with everybody. I tried to tune into some radio stations last night. I think I got to my room at about 12 midnight. All the local ones were off. But the BBC was on. CNN was on. Al Jazeera was on. And I know that my television stayed on BBC all the way till this morning. Because normally when I'm in rooms that I'm not very used to, I like to leave the television on, but with the sound mute. They were open all night. And every time you walk into these media houses, you find a very low, slim level of staff that is just there all night. They take it very, very seriously because some news may happen in some part of the world and there will be a need for them to deploy somebody or cover a story or take a news item that maybe everybody's asleep, and that is when it happens. Look, there was a World Bank report years ago, and those days I used to work a lot with WTO negotiations, and I was very active in the Rotterdam rules that came to pass. It was actually my subject for my dissertation at the time. So these are matters that I followed very closely. That all the economies that we speak of, that even thrived, even in the course of COVID, that survived all these big economic slumps that the world experienced over the years. One thing that they all have in common?
Tell me.
They have a 24-hour economy. They have the infrastructure. The best part is that no country has also developed without a modally complementary system of transportation. Why? When you go and work as a hand anywhere outside of the world, you come out at 2 a.m., there's a bus. There's a map, it tells you what times the bus is available. There's a train, but remember that the trains are not on full service at that time of the night. There's about 3 or 4. So you either catch it in the hour or you miss it and wait the next hour. So you know when you get to work, when you should leave work, so you know that once I get to the train station, there'll be a train waiting for me. Look, these are things that have been tried and tested. These are not things that are literally going to be invented out of the skies. But remember, the novelty is that for the very first time, government is going to put in place what? Look, we have a business that is open 24 hours. You know what the challenges are? We pay extra for security. The police service has a normal patrol, but you also have to pay for extra when you want it. And they give you very specific, units, and you pay for it. And the service is beautiful. They are there all night. Imagine that each regional capital had its own police force. How many police people will you be recruiting? Why do you think most businesses that even will be open at night are not open? The biggest chunk of it is security. Across the world, all these shooting incidents in the US, for example, the role of the security cameras are massive. They are on all night, 24/7. And behind every camera, like the gentleman behind the console, there is somebody sitting there and manning it. Sometimes 2, 3, 4 people.
And you think John Dramani Mahama can do all this within 4 years if he should win the 2024
Even
elections?
in a year.
He can put all the structures in place?
If there is commitment. Look at the amount of money we are losing to corruption, for example. Like I said, $58 million has been invested in the National Cathedral so far, and you don't even have one little boulder showing that there's any construction in progress. If a country can expend $58 million on a process like that, then if you invest that same amount in the 24-hour economy, I'm telling you that businesses will be very happy. Many Ghanaians will be very happy. They'll be pleased. So imagine even giving the consulting job to the TUC Ghana, for example, where most of our experts live. Why not? There is no expertise you don't have in the TUC. They've led many negotiations at various levels, even on international platforms for the country. So ask them, lead this exercise, go to the private sector, engage them, find out what it is they need. A lot of the shops that you see that are open, the biggest expenditure is on security and safety.
As we wrap up our conversation, Joyce Bawa Muktari, tell me this. 2024 elections is just around the corner, and you sound very confident. I've mentioned that already. But what lessons would you say the NDC, or lessons would you say JM has learned from, let's say, the 2020 elections, going into the 2024 elections?
Oh, many, many lessons. I look back on 2016, I look back on 2020, and I'm facing 2024 very, very positively. And I know there have been many lessons that we all can take from these campaigns. You know, think about it, for example. If in 2020, we were literally able to destabilize the whole of the majority side in parliament, Ghanaians actually went for a hung parliament. It meant that we had arrived already. What we need now is sincerity, very honest and feasible proposals or policies going forward. But what is the biggest thing that Ghanaians are currently worrying about? The largest challenge now is with the death completely of our economy. Look at the level of the DDEPs, the haircuts that people are getting. I mean, people like my mother, who is 84, has these treasury bills and she's not even sure how much longer she can continue to invest and receive any profits for, but that's all she lives on. We have a lot of challenges to do with even these bigger level of investors. I heard about someone who has huge sums of money in NDK, which is one of the microfinance companies that were literally just shut down. They have their monies locked up in there. These are huge sums of monies. We have huge sums of money that we deployed to actually a whole bank recapitalization exercise. And then we also use some to also go and do what? To try and change the whole banking system, using 16 million to chase these sorts of things. Look at the joblessness that created. So there are a lot of challenges, especially with the economy. But what was it that John Mahama was saying even in the past? That look, we need to fully industrialize. And I believe that I've heard even Mr. Alan Cheremanteng largely speaking about an industrialization drive. Look, what is digitalization? I always struggle with this word. The challenge is that we have also, look, this whole system of yours is a digital one. Yeah. Without that, how will we be here and transmitting to Accra and across the country? I mean, Love FM is a sister station to Joy FM. Yeah. You have been on this digital portal for years now. You understand? We had Busy Internet, we had Africa Online and all of that. What was it they were using? They were using digital platforms long ago. You can reinvent the wheel. You can add on reforms. You can try to amend the things that exist. The Ghana card conversation has been going on for the longest time I can remember, about Ghanaians like everybody else, individuals receiving one unique number that will be your identity for all the transactions that involve you as a human being. The reason why other countries have implemented these things successfully is because they have networks that are strong. And so even when you drop dead today, what it means is that automatically the system takes you out. It will update the information and the next person gets the number because they are yet still living. This is how these platforms work. They work largely because there's enormous investment in them. It is nothing new. So we need to start, look, our vice president carried himself all through the flag bearership contest. And to my utter surprise, I never heard him grant one interview. You see, where the whole digital thing is the reason why we are where we are. But for social media, I'm sure that all the stories on corruption, on the luxurious aircrafts that we're expending monies on the cash for seats, who even wanted to listen to what the NDC was saying? They literally had populated everywhere with enormous aggression. Suddenly our voices were not even being heard anymore. I mean, even on radio, for example. Why? I've been coming to Kumasi for a very long time. How many times have I gotten an invitation to spend a whole hour without another person from the other side screaming down my ears and literally screaming you down? You understand? And that is the sort of situation that we had over the last few years. So let's seek sincerity in our leaders.
Well, as we wrap up, it's very obvious that the NDC is ready for the 2024 elections. But I have a question. Before I ask that question, listeners, you can join us on 03220-83596, 03220-83597, or 03220-83598. These are our telephone numbers. And Joyce Bawa Muktari, special aide, to the former President John Dramani Mahama, is our guest. You can call and ask her questions. She would address it for you, or you can call and ask her to carry a message to the former president on your behalf. She has a very big bag. All your messages will go into that bag, so she carries the message across to the former president on your behalf. Kofi Bedu is on the line. Ken is on the line. Christoph is on the line as well. Let's begin with Kofi Bedu. Kofi, good morning.
Good morning, Dave.
Welcome, Kofi. Let's hear you, sir.
Good, Dave. You do not add my nickname. Mahama Kandu. Hi, Joyce.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Joyce.
Yes, sir.
Good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm also doing well. Look, this is my message, and it's a plea. I'm pleading with you to carry this message to Mr. Mahama to use Mahama Can Do as a slogan. Just as Barack Obama used Yes We Can as a slogan, and it worked for him. I'm pleading with Mahama to use Mahama Can Do as a slogan. Tell him that there's somebody called Kofi Bedu at Asakorimanko in the Aswasi constituency who says you should use Mahama Can Do as a slogan. You know, we want Mahama to come and rescue us from this Bawumia-led economy that is in a shambles. Bawumia-led economy that is shattered. We need him. The youth of this country are so hopeless, and we have hope in Mahama to come and save us from this. Because, look, we need deep thinkers and not talkative.
Thank you very much, Kofi Bedu. Thanks for joining us. Ken, you're next. Good morning.
Good morning, David. Madam, I hope you're doing well.
He's asking if you're fine.
I'm very well, thank you, sir.
Okay, all right. So, you see, I've always been like Akufo-Addo and then Mr. Competent, legendary lie I hate most, but the politician I don't like. And you see, the only sincere truth I've ever heard from a politician is when JDM said, politicians lie for power. So tell me, the question David asks you, can JDM swear by the cause that his 24-hours economy, he will implement it when the innocent, poor Ghanaians vote for him out of anger and hunger? That is what is happening now. So if with a proper strategy, he can implement it, I think it will help. Like Kofi Bedu said, Mahama can do it.
Well, Mahama can do it. So says Kofi Bedu, so says Ken. Christoph is also on the line right now. He asked you a question about the 24-hour economy. Madam, you would respond to it before you leave us. Christoph, welcome. Good morning.
Yeah. Good morning, David. I hope you are fine, sir.
I am well, Christoph. Good to have you.
Dr. Joyce, I hope you are also fine.
Yes, sir. I'm very well, thank you.
Good. I want to commend you. In fact, you are a great communicator, okay? Leave some 200 things with David for me so that when you leave, I'll come for it. David, I want Auntie Joyce to tell me, Mr. Mahama was once an MP. I don't know if he was an assemblyman. Then he became an MP. Then he became a deputy minister, became a full-fledged minister. Then he walked on to become vice president. He became the overall president in a nutshell. After all these years, we've seen him done a lot of things. We want him to convince us. What is he coming to do differently? Because he has gotten the mandate from the scratch, from the grassroots to the top.
I hear you, Christoph. I'm sure maybe you joined us late because I asked that question and she gave an answer to that, but maybe she would still give some response before she takes leave of us. Ziggy Brown is on the line. Hi, Ziggy. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, David.
Yes, boss. Let's hear you.
My problem is our railway system. I went to school in Takwa Secondary School. For 7 years, I went to school always on a train. We are talking about a 24-hour economy. The railway sector was employed with about 5,000 people over the country. So I want Madam to urge John to revive our railway system, revive it, and let it be a part of our 24-hour economy.
Thank you very much, Ziggy Brown, for joining us. Our final caller is in Bonzi. Chief Bonzi, good morning.
Hello, David. Good morning.
Yes, sir. Let's hear you, boss.
And good morning to Joyce as well. So, I have a few comments. One, on your comment about the running mate, I think it's a little preemptive. I can agree that you were a lady and you probably would root for Madam Nana Jean to be retained. But I think it's a little preemptive, especially when the flag bearer himself has not had that conversation with you. Then you cannot have a side. So that's my first comment. The second, we believe that Mr. Mahama did some good in his past administration. But isn't this drive merely a self-actualization desire? Because we agree that in 4 years he can do something. But the kind of things he's talking about, it will take a much longer time than 4 years. Is this desire to come again not a self-actualization? That after having come through as a president, 4 years, he's gone out, 8 years, he's coming back. just so that his name will go in the annals of history, that he also had his 8 years after all. Is that not the case? And then 3, when we talk about the 24-hour economy, I would want us to put specifics. There is too much rhetoric, like this is bad, the roads are not done, people need security. It goes beyond that.